I am Kingly Bingley. Bang! That was a really terrible way to start this. Welcome to R-Rated, where we are talking today about the finale of... I'm going to get rid of this now. It's fine. The finale of Moon Knight, Episode 6, Gods and Monsters. And I should point out, too, I'm kind of checking my phone just so I can verify that I'm not completely insane. Yeah. When I first went to go watch this episode, the title of the episode was Episode 6, which it turned out was not, in fact, the actual episode title. But I was wondering, like, oh, is this going to turn out to be a meaningful thing? They decided, like, oh, let's integrate this. It'll be meta and funny. And, like, it's the sixth, DID episode that Marc Spector has gone through, or some. No, it's not. They just kind of fucked up when they first uploaded the episode, I guess. Because Gods and Monsters is the official title, which, like, it's okay. That's a kind of overdone title, in my opinion. I feel like there's lots of stuff that play with that kind of idea or that title and things. So aside from the weird title upon an initial watch, it also is the shortest episode of the season, clocking in at 44 minutes, including credits, so it's probably more like 30, 32, somewhere around there. It is, in fact, shorter than every other episode of the season, and it really feels like it. They really felt like they cut out a lot of stuff that, like, not like it was the most necessary stuff in the world, but it definitely felt like it was things that would have been nice to keep. I'm not really sure what the idea there was. Like, for example, early in the episode, Arthur Harrow winds up collecting the Ushabti of Amit, and we don't really see what happens to it. We just see that he's holding it, and then we turn and see a shot of Layla while there's purple glows happening in the area, and then he's holding it, and then we cut back to him holding his cane as the two heads go whoa, and close down, and it becomes an axe. And that's it. We don't actually see what happens there. We find out what happens to the Ushabtis later when, is it Layla? I think Layla smashes Khonshu's Ushabti during the episode, releasing him, and it just kind of like, it hits the ground, like it looks like it's made of stone, but as it hits the ground, it kind of explodes like dust, like it just kind of, like a very silky sort of explosion. But so that got cut in the moment with Arthur Harrow and Amit, and I'm really not sure why they omitted that shot bit. It doesn't matter. They also wind up. We're going to jump directly to the end of this. There is a confrontation between Arthur Harrow and Mark and Steven, who have, who are still around, and they're kind of bouncing more freely between their two personalities, including while transformed. And they fight Harrow, who just has essentially a super powerful enchanted cane. And there comes a point where all of a sudden Mark, so Steven's having trouble, Mark comes out, Mark does his thing, and he blacks out and wakes up having defeated Harrow, and with the axe pointed at him, and it's like, did you really just cut out what would have been the climactic part of the climactic battle? Because in the background during all of this, a massive skyscraper tall Khonshu is fighting a massive skyscraper tall Amit. And that's like kind of not really the important battle in a way, like in terms of the characters. So we just kind of like, here's a fight. Here we go. Oh, it's going back and forth. Oh, blackout. And we won. Oh, okay. I guess that's fine. We do get a really touching moment where Mark, essentially he's in the field of reeds, and Taweret is there and is like, yeah, so here you go. This is utopia, peace at long last. And he's like, it's quiet. And he's like, yeah, that's kind of the deal. And Mark is like, no, I have to go back for Steven. And she says that, like, hey, if you go back, you probably won't be able to come back here. Like, this is kind of a one and done kind of thing. And he says that, doesn't matter. He can't abandon him, and he goes back and he finds Steven frozen in front of the door of Osiris, and kind of has a little monologue to him about how, like, Steven was the one who protected him when he was young, and he doesn't know if he would have made it through without him. And he says that, like, you know, that Steven was the superpower all along. And it's a very touching kind of thing. And, like, so Steven, who's frozen with his hand up like this, Marc kind of reaches down to him as he starts to freeze in the sands of the duet as well. And when he does so, like, their combined heart is kind of formed in between the two of them and opens the doors of Osiris. There's a big sand tsunami for some reason. I don't know what the cause of that is. I guess that's the duet being angry, but Taweret throws her boat in the way of it. It's kind of an interesting and weird sequence. It's kind of hard to describe. It's out there. It's definitely out there. We get to see Harrow release Amit, and we find out through this, like, we didn't really know for sure, but we find out through this that Harrow's scales are actually unbalanced. And it's unclear whether it's something in his past or in his future, because Amit tells him to not let the pain of the past consume him, but at the same time also says that his scales are unbalanced because of something that he's going to do for her, which is doubly interesting, because you'd think that would be a moment that might shake Harrow's faith, where it's like, oh, the whole point is to cleanse the earth of those with unbalanced scales, but Amit doesn't seem to really be bothered by it at all. She's just kind of like, whatever, you're going to do stuff for me, even if it's bad. And that doesn't really seem to matter to him at all. Yeah. So once there's a lot of, like, really rapid back and forths going on too, that's kind of a little bit tricky to kind of grapple with. But so Marc and Steven are released from the duet. They have a really sweet, like, you know, reunion kind of moment there. They make it through the door, and around the same time, Khonshu is released by Layla, who has snuck along in Harrow's convoy, both an envoy and a convoy. And there's an interesting moment where to show off what his new cane can do, because Amit has been released, he gets stopped at, like, a checkpoint by Egyptian police, essentially, and slams his cane, and everyone is kind of, whoa, and Soul's released from all of them except for one, who is like, you have work to do with us now. And Layla is going up to, and she's about to stab Harrow, and she gets stopped because Taweret starts speaking through the bodies of the dead, which is, like, interesting. Also doubly interesting for reasons that will be mentioned in the next review that I do as well. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting little bit there. I actually really like Taweret. I think she's fun. Layla's also really solid. May Calamawy really, really kicked ass in this show overall, I would say. Honestly, the acting has been very strong across the board. May Calamawy has been fantastic. Oscar Isaac has done a really great job. Ethan Hawke is really solid in, like, kind of the multiple facets of Arthur Harrow, which is great because that character is extremely boring, but Ethan Hawke is elevating it in a really big way, and I don't think this would have worked as well with a lesser actor. I think he is doing a great job here. So there's a scene where Khonshu is speaking with Marc, and Steven very casually just kind of jumps out to join the conversation, and it's kind of switches. Essentially, Marc and Steven are able to very freely switch back and forth at this point, and through the rest of the episode, there's conversations where he slips from one personality to the next within, like, moments. There's no, like, blackouts or anything like that. They just kind of, like, whoop, whoop, and they're... when they're transformed, their costumes also change, because it seems like Marc has the classic Moon Knight costume, while Steven has one that I think is referred to as Mr. Knight, which is more of, like, an intellectual kind of character compared to Moon Knight, who's a bit more brutal. So that's kind of an interesting tweak on the character, that now he's able to kind of freely move between the two. I'm not sure in battle why you would want Mr. Knight over Moon Knight. Steven keeps kind of being like, yeah, let me out there, I'll fight. And it's like, yeah, but why? You're not as good of a fighter. And it doesn't seem like switching personalities is making you less tired. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing how that angle of it works. But basically, Harrow goes to the top of the pyramid, starts using his cane over the entirety of Cairo, and not to steal their souls, but he gives his followers who have the scale they get the scale tattoos and they can start judging people one by one. I believe the main writer of the show had the main director, or vice versa, and one of them was a follower and one of them was being judged, which is kind of a cute little background thing. But in doing this, Amit winds up growing to really monstrous size as she starts collecting and consuming these souls. And Khonshu kind of, I don't think there's a reason for it. Someone online had mentioned that he essentially turns it from day to night to bring the moon out. I don't remember that happening. It must have been so fast, and I just didn't even register it, to be dead honest. But maybe that's why he's also massive. They have a big kaiju fight. At one point, Amit punches Khonshu in the throat, and he starts choking, which is interesting because he has no throat. I don't even know if he's got a neck. I'm pretty sure his head just hovers above his body. But he's like, and it's like, what is physically happening for Khonshu right now in that moment? Layla, winds up needing to resort to pretty desperate measures to help out, and essentially calls back out to Taweret. So Taweret talks to Layla and is talking about, we need to work together. And she's like, I'm not working with any of you. And then eventually Khonshu, when he's broken out, talks to Layla about will you be my avatar? And she's like, no, fuck off. Go away. And she stays firm with that. She does not become the avatar of Khonshu. She instead, at least temporarily, probably permanently, becomes the avatar of Taweret, who is gleeful that she's willing to participate in this, in a way where she's Taweret's kind of squeeze with delight, and that gets the attention of Harrow, which means that they have to run. But when she does that, she gets her own mythical armor essentially, and it's kind of a golden warrior's kind of armor. And she's got two swords that she summons, and she's got these wings that come out. From my understanding, this is meant to be essentially the MCU's interpretation of the Scarlet Scarab, who is a different character. Layla as a character doesn't really exist in the comics, and I guess is kind of a fusion of two different characters, one being Mark's wife, the other being the Scarlet Scarab. There's a cute moment where where she rescues a girl from being hit by a tumbling van in Cairo, and in the background behind her, written in graffiti, I guess is written in Arabic, Khonshu lives, which is pretty cool. The girl kind of stands there stunned for a minute, and she's like, are you an Egyptian superhero? And Layla thinks for a second, she's like, yeah. She's like, okay. And then they go about their thing. It's it's kind of cute. That's a fun little thing. Her in the armor with her hair all over looks fucking awesome, by the way. I think that's really cool. It's a very, she has a very Wonder Woman-y kind of aesthetic and battle kind of style where she uses her wings. It's actually, I guess it's kind of an in-between Wonder Woman and the Falcon in some ways. Not so much now as Captain America. I guess, does he... I forget if we've seen Sam use the wings since he took up the shield or not, but he, we've seen him as the Falcon using his wings as a shield, and she does the same. She kind of does a little as the bullets come in to kind of block, those. It's kind of a cool look. But again, I literally wrote down, let's see, Mark and Steven black out while a third personality defeats Harrow. ... Not the best climax for that fight. Kind of conflicted. Wait, ... the psych ward, because this battle ends and then we jump to a psych ward where I'm skipping one scene, but I'll come back to it, where we're back to the psych ward where Dr. Harrow is doing his thing in Mark's mind, and Mark looks down and notices that Dr. Harrow's footsteps are bloody. He's like, wait, am I bleeding? And it's kind of what is this moment that's going on? Is Dr. Harrow meant to be kind of a figment of his brain that represents self-doubt or something? Or I don't entirely know, but yeah. The scene that I skipped that's in the middle is Harrow gets grabbed by Mark and Layla, and they do a chant, and they seal Amit in Harrow because they can't destroy Amit, and they can't contain Amit in an Ushabti anymore, clearly. So they contain her within Harrow, and there's a moment where Mark's like, all right, there we go. And Khonshu's like, now you have to kill her. You have to kill him to kill her. And Mark is about to do it, but Layla's like, you don't need to go down this path. Which, like, yes, but Harrow was also pretty cool with the whole wiping out question mark a number of people. He never really bothered to come up with an idea of how many people it would be. So, I don't know. I think there were ways to draw that up that would have been a little bit less like, yeah, but he declines. He says he won't do it, and he tells Khonshu, like, if you want to kill him, do it yourself. Also, our deal is done. And so Khonshu's like, all right, fine, and he leaves. And there we go. Steven, Mark/Steven, I guess Steven is the one who wakes up in the old apartment. We get the repeat of the song, every day I wake up, then I start to break up. That extremely on-the-nose track. There's 2 goldfish now. I didn't see whether one of them had only 1 fin. And it's like, all right, cool. And then it's just like that's just kind of it. Steven tries to get out of his bed, forgets that he bound his foot again for some reason. Why would he do that? I guess it's weird because, like, on the one hand, he and Mark have to be aware of the fact that there is a third personality underneath, but they don't seem to be all too concerned about it. The show's been hinting at it a lot. But yeah, there we go. And it just kind of ends. And it's like got a really strong, like, to be continued sort of energy going on in here. Though, as far as I'm aware, they haven't announced a second season of the show, which is weird because that bit alone is, like, very cliffhangery, and then they add a stinger that's even more cliffhangery. We get to see that Arthur Harrow is now in a mental facility, and someone comes up and, you know, says, like, up here, like, we can see that he's kind of, like, struggling, where he sees a cup of coffee as a cup of sand, and he goes and he knocks over the cup, and a bunch of coffee spills out. Like, it's an interesting little visual thing they do with it, but Harrow gets dragged away by some guy with driving gloves, basically, and put into a limo where Khonshu is sitting wearing, like, a white suit, which is an interesting choice, and then introduces him, and he's like, Mark thought that he was free of my contract with him, but he's a much more broken man than he realizes. Let me introduce you to Jake Lockley, who is famously the third personality in the comics of Marc Spector, which I didn't know at the time, but I had learned about after I had watched the episode. I had figured there was probably a third. There were lots of hints about it. Jake Lockley seems to only speak Spanish. My best guess is that this is a personality that he came up with during his time in the military to deal with the, you know, bloody carnage going on around him. Like, Mark doesn't seem to have much of a stomach for, like, brutal killing if he can avoid it. Jake Lockley doesn't seem to give a shit. He seems to be very cold, calculating, just kind of like, yep, I'll kill whoever, doesn't matter. And he executes Harrow in the limo. So Amit's gone, presumably for good, I guess. That's just it. I guess that's how you kill a god. I don't know. It was a really such an abrupt ending. I have to imagine that Khonshu and Jake would functionally be the villains of a season 2, were there to be a season 2, which either there's going to be a season 2 or they're going to be involved in whatever story the Black Knight shows up in. Dane Whitman from the Eternals, whatever thing that's going to be. I don't think that either of them. I don't think that Moon Knight will show up in Blade. Black Knight could. There's a lot of confusing. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of loose ends kind of all over the place here. Thoughts on the episode? I think I'm going to give this one a 6. The episode was, like, so abrupt and weirdly cut, and there were so many corners taken off of it. They easily could have put another 5 or 10 minutes in and had it make sense. That was an abrupt ending, even if this was trimmed down to be a feature-length movie, which I still hold. I still hold that this show probably should have just been a movie. Yes, Moon Knight is an unknown name for a lot of folks, but at the same time, so was Doctor Strange. So to an extent, so was Iron Man. Iron Man hadn't been popular since the 70s, if that. So I don't know. I think that this making this a series instead of a movie, especially with the caliber of actors they had, might have been a mistake. Overall, I generally liked the show. I think I'll like it more if a season 2 happens and it does continue on from here. It was a very up and down season. The middle episodes 4 and 5 were fantastic. The rest of it was a little underwhelming. Comparing it to other shows, I would say it's definitely below WandaVision. I think I'd say it's above The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'd say it's probably below Loki. Probably above What If. And probably it's close between it and Hawkeye. Both of them had really weird endings. Both shows had endings I wasn't a big fan of. I think they basically tied. I might say it's even a tiny bit better overall. I don't know. And if that might only just be because I feel like they wasted the Wilson Fisk cameo in Hawkeye. Yeah, I don't know. They're very close together. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for this. I think they're going to greenlight a season 2 or they're going to announce a movie. I think a movie would have been the right call for this. I think announcing a movie sequel like they're doing for Captain America 4 wouldn't be a good call here. I think now they should do a season 2, but they really got to figure out their pacing. This show had so many pacing issues. The acting was great. The writing was okay. It was a little overly expository in my opinion. But I think the acting was fantastic. And I do I'm glad that we're getting some stuff that doesn't take place in New York. We have tons of shit that happens in New York, tons of stuff that's happening, a bit of stuff that's happening in California. It's nice to see stuff that's taking place in other locations around the world. Egypt is a pretty fun setting, to be able to explore, and like the mythology of ancient Egypt and all of those things. So that's a pretty cool aspect to it. I'm very curious how the Egyptian gods, like what the origin really of those in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is compared to, say, the Norse gods as Asgardians or the Greek gods, which we're going to be seeing in Thor: Love and Thunder. So yeah, and same thing as the goddess Bast. I don't think we're ever going to really see the origin, I guess, of Bast. How that wound up, working, but I don't know. So that, I think, is it for me with Moon Knight. I'm going to be coming back tomorrow with a review of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I would love to hear your comments on the show, on the episode. I'd love to hear your comments on this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you are enjoying them, because I'm going to be doing a lot more of these in the future. I'm probably going to figure out a couple things I want to do between Doctor Strange and Ms. Marvel in June, but we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. But I think it is time for us to do a little bit of redecorating for the next review. So if you give me one quick moment here. I might need a cloak.